So welcome once again to our City Ledger webinar presentation for RoomKeyPMS. Our presentation for today will go through a bit of an introduction, introduce myself and my colleagues here. Then we'll dive right into our topic for today. We'll define what is the City Ledger. We'll look at how we can transfer charges to the City Ledger, how you can create and manage accounts inside the City Ledger, as well as creating and managing invoices. Then we'll talk about when you can start using these tools in your RoomKeyPMS database, and we'll wrap it all up with a summary and Q&A at the end of our presentation. So getting started with our introductions today, my name is Tasha Leclerc. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKey. Joining me today, I do have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Tam. I'll be leading today's presentation and the live demonstration on screen, and William will oversee the chat and Q&A section. So everyone joining today's live presentation is on mute, but if you do have a question at any time throughout the presentation, go ahead and click the Q&A button in the Zoom meeting. You can ask your question, William will be able to answer, and if there's any questions left over at the end, we'll be able to include those in our Q&A. A couple of other things about today's webinar is being recorded, and a copy of this recording will be made available on our public support website. Everyone who is registered for our webinar will receive a notification once that presentation is available or that recording is made available on our support website. For those of you attending today's live presentation, we do have a webinar survey that will be sent out after the presentation ends. We do appreciate any feedback that you're able to provide. And if you have any suggestions for future webinar topics, we'd be happy to review those as well. That survey does help us keep these webinars going each month, and I am happy to advise that our webinars will be continuing into 2023. So next year, January, our very first webinar topic is going to be on transaction codes. So let's get started with today's topic. That is the City Ledger in RoomKey. So we're going to define that from the RoomKey perspective. We do consider this an accounting tool that uses invoicing to manage charges and payments. So the way that we work with this tool is that at the hotel, you may host an event or you may provide a service to a company or organization, and from that service or that event, you generate an invoice. That invoice is then sent to the company or organization, and then the company sends a check or some sort of payment for that invoice. So the purpose of the City Ledger is actually to manage the invoicing as well as recording those payments that are received after the invoice has been sent off to the organization. Now, there's a couple different ways that invoicing can be generated. Certainly, you can create an invoice directly inside RoomKey. You don't need to have any, it doesn't need to be associated with any sort of reservation, but generating an invoice or series of invoices from individual reservations is a very common way that these invoices are generated at a hotel. So these types of guests could include corporate guests that are staying as part of a corporate account, and they use what's called direct billing to transfer those charges to the City Ledger. You could also have this direct billing set up for groups or wholesalers that are staying at your hotel. So again, from these different types of guests, invoices would be generated. Now, with our system, you can generate individual invoices and send those to the company, or you could collect those invoices all together on a statement for the entire account. And you would be able to send multiple invoices to the organization as a statement instead. So let's see first how we can transfer these charges from different types of guest stays to the City Ledger. we're going to see that here in a live demonstration. So I'm going to bring up the RoomKeyPMS database for us to use. So this is a test database. These are test data. And I'm going to go directly to our departure screen here on the right-hand side. I've got a couple of guests that are checking out today, and this first guest, room 207, is going to be checking out, and these charges are going to go to the city ledger. A couple things that I can point out on this guest reservation. At the bottom here, I can see that this guest is associated with the Audi Canada Corporation, and their charges are going to be going to the Audi Canada city ledger. I can also see that noted here in the reservation notes. That gives me those billing instructions off to the bottom right-hand side. So when I click checkout, I'm going to be able to check out this guest. I'll have the checkout window up here. And what you'll notice here is that I have a summary of the outstanding balance that is owed for this guest stay. And in the payment method section, this is letting me know that this is going to be transferred to the city ledger, and it shows me the name of that city ledger account. Now, for your property or organization, you may have a different code or term listed here. You may use the term direct bill or direct billing. That is the same as city ledger or city ledger transfer in this case. What I would like to highlight here is that this is unique because it does not show the guest credit card information that is typically used for settling any outstanding charges. So I know that these charges are going directly to that Audi Canada city ledger account. I can simply select checkout. That will successfully check out that guest. I can click OK. And I'm just going to review that checkout here in the checked out screen on the right-hand side. There's that guest that I just checked out. And if I take a look at their folio, I can see the room charge for their stay. And now I can see a city transfer transaction code letting me know that those charges were transferred to Audi Canada. So another way that we can transfer charges, let me just go back to our departure screen here. We have another guest that is also set up with a similar scenario here. This guest in room 312, they are associated with Across Australia organization, and their charges are going to be going to this Across Australia city ledger account. Now you can transfer charges without having to check out the guest. If you'd like to do that, you can click on the folio tab for the guest, and you'll notice that there is a city ledger transfer button. So this guest has stayed for 2 nights, and I want to transfer these charges, but I want to allow the guest to stay in the room. Maybe they haven't come down to formally check out at the front desk on their departure date quite yet. So I'm going to click the City Ledger Transfer button here on the Folio tab, and this is going to reiterate those charges that are currently on file for this guest. Now it's going to allow me to do some review here as well. I can select the charges individually by clicking on a charge and click Add Transaction, and click on a charge and add transaction. So I can do that manually and select individual charges from this list. You can also remove charges using that Remove Transaction button. Now, if you want to select all of the charges, you can use the Auto Apply option, and that's going to select everything here that's displayed on screen. Now, if the guest had more than one folio, if they had multiple folios, you can use the folio drop-down menu to select and view one folio at a time. This guest is only using folio 8, so there's only the 2 charges in that single folio there. Now, as you're selecting charges, whether you're using the individual select or the auto apply, you'll notice the total transfer amount automatically update in the bottom left-hand corner. This is going to give us a summary of what is about to happen. It's going to let me know that these charges are going to be transferred to the Across Australia City Ledger account, and it's going to create a brand new invoice for this guest charges. Now, I do recommend that you create a new invoice when you are manually transferring these charges. If you know that there is already an open invoice that you want to transfer these charges to, you can use the drop-down menu to select Other Invoice and then search for that other invoice. That's not very common, so I am going to use the most common method here, the recommended method, to create a new invoice. And I'll go ahead and select Transfer. Great. So it lets me know that those charges were transferred, but as you'll see, this guest is still remaining in the departures screen. So it did not check out the reservation. It simply added this additional line item here on the guest folio to let me know that those charges have been transferred successfully to the Across Australia City Ledger account. Now, once the guest does come down to hand in their keys to the front desk, I can go ahead and proceed with a checkout. Because these charges have already been transferred, there's no outstanding charges for the guest. When I click checkout, it's going to let me know that there is no outstanding balance. I can simply select checkout. Great. So the last example I wanted to show you here as well, back on my departure screen, is this example with a guest that is checking out. However, you'll notice at the bottom of the guest info section here, they are not associated with any corporate group or wholesaler account. They are a leisure guest that has booked the best available rate. They are now checking out, but if I receive management approval that these charges for this guest stay should be going to a city ledger account instead of the guest paying, I can transfer these charges at the time of checkout to a city ledger account. So I would follow the checkout procedure. I would select checkout or F6 on my keyboard. Just like a regular checkout for any other leisure guest, it will pull over the payment method on file. So that's that guest credit card information that's being pulled over into this payment method screen. Instead of using the guest credit card or payment method on file to pay for these charges, I'm going to change the code to the City Ledger transfer code. Or again, if your property uses the term direct bill or direct billing, you would change the code to DB or direct billing. Once you change the code, you'll notice that the payment method fields do change, and you now have the ability to select a name. So you're going to use the ellipsis button, the three little dots here, to search for an account. And I'm going to transfer these charges to the ABC company. So I type in a portion of the account name and select search. Now I have my ABC company listed here. If that company is associated with any other city ledger accounts, we do have the ability to create a hierarchy in the city ledger module. It will also show any other possible matches. So under that ABC company umbrella account, there is also two other companies listed down below. So those associations can be set up in, or that association structure can be set up in the city ledger, but I'm going to use the ABC company, that umbrella company, for this purpose here. And I'll go ahead and click the select button. Once you've changed the code and selected the city ledger account, you can now click checkout. And just like that first example we saw, it's going to check out the guest. And if I review that on my checked out screen, here on the guest folio, you'll see that those charges were successfully transferred to the ABC company. So those are the different ways that you can transfer charges from the front desk to the city ledger. Now, you can track any of those transfers using a report here from the reports menu. It's within the audit section, and it's called checked out by city account. This report is commonly pulled at the end of the day or by a night auditor to review all charges that were transferred from the front desk to the city ledger. It will default to the current day. If it is a night auditor pulling this report, the night auditor can use this date selector to pick the previous date in that case. But let's take a look at those charges that I transferred today. And here it's going to group the charges by city ledger account. So I transferred 3 charges to 3 different city ledger accounts, and they're grouped here. It'll let me know the guest information, including res ID and room number, and then it will summarize the amount that was transferred. So I can see those amounts summarized off to the right-hand side as well. So you can use the print icon or save this report electronically for your records. I'm just going to go ahead and close this preview. And going back to our presentation here. So we've seen how you can transfer charges to the city ledger. Now I'm going to show you how you can access the city ledger and how you can create and manage accounts in that tool. So let me bring up RoomKey once again. Go. Now the city ledger is found in the operations menu, and it's simply called city ledger. We do have a shortcut key, so if you're using a keyboard, you can use the F8 keyboard shortcut to open up the city ledger. The city ledger does open up in full screen, but this is a module, much like we've seen with some of the other modules in RoomKey. You can click and drag this and still see the information in RoomKey behind there. I do like to, I do prefer to use the full screen view, so I'm just going to maximize this view once again. So here in the city ledger, it is set up similar to how we view screens in RoomKey. You have menu options along the top of the screen. You have action buttons or function buttons below that. And then the main screen is comprised of the information that we're working with at this one time. So here I can see our account listing, and it's going to show me a list of all of my open and active accounts. Each account will have its own account name and contact name, and it will also indicate the outstanding invoice balances and if there's any payment credits on file for that company. Now, if you've recently created a new account or if you've recently paid off an account, it may not show in this list right away because this list is only going to show any accounts that have outstanding balances or payment credits. So if you'd like to see an account that has a $0 balance, at the bottom left corner, you're going to see a checkbox here that says Show Zero Balance Accounts. So one of the examples here is my account for April Point. That is at a $0 invoice balance and $0 payment credit. So it is hidden by default unless I select that checkbox there. That's just a way to help optimize the view whenever you're working with accounts here. So you can create brand new accounts in this area. You can select New Account using the green plus button in the top left corner. When you create a new city ledger account, it's usually because you're working with some sort of third-party organization or business. So for that organization or business, you will use the main information here. You can list the account name, their address, and contact information. The other thing that you can set up here is if the account has a separate billing address, if they have a physical address that they use for their main information, but you want to use a separate billing address, we do have space to include that information. And you can also choose to use the billing address on invoices and statements by default. Now, I did mention that our system does allow you to create a hierarchy. So if you have a company that has subdivisions, you can set up a master account setup where you can have one umbrella company like the ABC company, and then you can have subsidiaries or sub companies created below that as well. So we got lots of flexibility on how you're going to create your different accounts here in the City Ledger area. Just back here on the main information, I just wanted to also note that when you're creating an account, whether or not you use the separate billing address or master account setup, you will need to set a credit limit when you're creating that account for the first time. This credit limit is not related to payment credits, any prepayments or advanced deposits that the account has given you. This credit limit instead is more like a credit card limit that will allow a certain limit to how much money can be transferred to the account before you're trying to collect on that outstanding balance. So for example, a credit limit here, if I leave this space blank when I create the account, that credit limit will default to 0. And that means that the front desk team would not be able to transfer any charges to the account because there is no credit on the account. So the credit limit would be 0 in that case. So once you've entered in the account details, your credit limit, and the optional billing information, you can select Save, and that will create a brand new account here in the City Ledger. And just cancel out of there. I'm going to open up this ABC company account, and we'll review some of the details once you have created an account. You can select the View Details button at the top of the screen, or you can simply double-click on the account, and that will open up the account details for you. Now, once your account is created and active, you will receive this first tab here, which goes over the account statistics. It gives you an aged breakdown of any outstanding balances over the last 90 days or beyond. It reviews the account credit limit and any remaining credit balance on file. We also have a summary of any recent activity. So we recently created an invoice, and we also recorded a payment as recently as yesterday. Now, I mentioned that you can generate invoices or individual invoices that are sent off to the company. You can also generate statements that are sent off to the company. That information that is sent off to the company is also contained on the account details. So here are account details. And of course, if the organization ever changes any of this information, if they change their physical address, or if they want to update their contact information, you can use the Edit Account button in the bottom left corner to update that information. You can also use this Edit Account to update the credit limit for the account itself using this credit limit field as well. Great. Now, before we jump into the invoicing and statements, I want to make a couple more notes about how you can manage these accounts. If you have an account that has a high balance and they have yet to make any payments, maybe this Audi Canada has not made any payments recently, I want to prevent them from incurring any more charges or balances while I wait for them to make some sort of payment to pay down this high balance. So you can actually lock an account that would still keep the account open or active here in City Ledger, but it'll actually prevent them from sending charges from the front desk. You would use the Lock Account button at the top of the screen, and when you select Yes, that will now lock the account. It appears orange here in the City Ledger, and you'll have a little lock symbol off to the right-hand side. Now, from the front desk side of things, the front desk agent, if they are to transfer charges to Audi Canada, either at check-in or using one of the manual methods we reviewed, the front desk agent would receive a notification telling them that the account is locked and that they cannot send the charges to the city ledger. They would have to work with the guest to pay those charges using another payment method. Now, once the organization has made a payment, the accounting team can come into the city ledger here and they can unlock the account using the unlock button at the top of the screen. Once you unlock the account, you'll see that it reverts back, removes that highlighting. It also removes the lock symbol. And now the front desk can once again transfer charges into the city ledger account using the methods we reviewed at the beginning of this presentation. Now, another thing that you can do to manage your accounts is if your business is coming to an end with a certain organization, if they're ending their contract or ending their association with you, you can close their account. Now, before you can close an account, you must settle all outstanding invoice balances, and you must send back or refund any outstanding payment credits. So you're going to have to bring the account to a $0 balance. I'm going to use one of our examples here from our zero balance accounts, April Point. This organization is no longer sending guests to this hotel, and we're going to end our contracted business with April Point. I would select the Close Account button at the top of the screen. And when the account is closed, it disappears from this list of active and open accounts. Now, it does not delete any of the historical information. I can still review any past invoices or statement information from that account. You will need to go down to the lower left corner and select the Closed toggle. In this closed toggle, you will see a list of any accounts that have been closed with your organization. You can still open up and view the details for this business as well. Now, because we do retain any closed account information, if the company comes back to you, if April Point wants to sign a new direct billing contract with my hotel, I can reopen the account and update any account information as needed. So I would select the account and click Open Account. That will open it back up. And if I go back to my active and open accounts, make sure I'm looking at my zero balance accounts. Once again, I do see April Point here. And of course, I can view details and update if I need to update any contact information for that organization. Great. So heading back to our presentation here, we've seen how we can create and manage accounts. We can create different account structures, update contact information, and manage those details. The next thing that I wanted to show you was how to create and manage invoicing for these accounts. So I'm going to bring up RoomKey and that city ledger once again. Here, I'm just going to take a look at my accounts that we've been working with so far. Now, we transfer charges into the accounts from the front desk. We can also create invoices directly in the account itself. We don't need to rely on charges from the front desk. We can actually post charges directly to an invoice here in the city ledger. So I'm going to open up this account for BC Hydro. I double click, or I could click on the View Details button. Can go directly to the Invoices tab, and this is going to show me a list of all of the invoices for this organization. It's going to only show me the invoices with outstanding balances, but if I'd like to look at any past invoices, I can click Show Zero Balance Invoices, and that would show me any past invoicing as well. Great. Now I can create a brand new invoice, select the New Invoice button, and that will create a new invoice line item here. It'll automatically come through with the invoice date, today's date. It'll automatically assign an invoice ID or invoice number that is unique to this individual invoice. And it'll come through with an invoice name, which is actually just the name of the account. Now that's the default setting. If I'd like to update the invoice name or maybe add a purchase order or PO number to the invoice itself, I can double click on the invoice. And this will allow me to change the invoice name or update that PO number, purchase order number. I'm going to go ahead and add this name. I'm going to call this executive event. And save. Now the invoice itself is comprised of payments and charges. So right now there are no payments due or no charges on file. This is a brand new invoice. I'm going to go ahead and click Post Charge, and this will allow me to start posting charges for this event. So this organization, they're not staying at the hotel. They don't have any guests overnight, but they are renting out meeting space and some equipment and services from the hotel. So from the transaction code menu, I can select the correct transaction code in order to post these charges for their event. So they're going to rent out the ballroom, and that's at a rate of $300. And select OK. And I can repeat that process to post additional charges. So I'll post another charge here for AV equipment. There we go, right there. And we'll charge $50 for that AV equipment. Great. So you can continue to use the post charge button here on the invoice to post the charges as needed. What many people will do is actually navigate to the charges tab at the top here. So as they click post charges, you'll be able to see those charges individually show up as each individual line item here. So I have the ballroom rental for $300 and the AV equipment rental for $50. Now, if you make any mistakes as you're posting this information, here I posted AV equipment rental for $50, but maybe it should have been $75. You can edit this information as you go. So this example here, I would want to reverse this charge. It was posted with an incorrect amount, and I'm going to repost the correct amount. I'll select the charge and click the reverse button. And anytime you do a reversal in RoomKey, you do need to provide a reason as to why you're reversing that charge. So this was a posting error. I'm just going to state that and state that it was the wrong amount. So when I reverse the charge, you'll notice that it disappears from this list of charges, and I can go ahead and click Post Charge and repeat that process to post the correct amount. So that was AV equipment, and it should have been $75. Okay. So as you are posting charges and making any changes to the invoice itself, all of these changes and charges and payments are recorded as part of an invoice log. Here on the invoice log tab, that's going to show a log of all of those events, including any changes you make to the name. So I can see that I changed the name right off the bat at the beginning here. This log will track any reversals as well, and they are highlighted in red. So it's really easy to identify any of those errors and review that information. You can also see the clerk name is recorded in the far right-hand corner. This information does not delete. So even after the invoice has been paid off, you can always review $0 invoices and review the invoice log accordingly. Now, we do have the ability to record any internal notes regarding an invoice. So if you wanted to record notes regarding this invoice, these notes do not appear on any printed reports. They do not appear on any statements or invoices that are sent to the organization. This is for internal reference only. I could record that I made a mistake or just communicate internally with other staff members using RoomKey. Now, another thing that we can use for communication purposes is the task tab. Tasks are internal messages that you can set as reminders for yourself or other team members. So I could set a task reminder for myself to post charges, certain charges for this account, for this invoice tomorrow, using the new task button at the bottom here. Now, the new tasks do use the message center, and we did do an earlier webinar presentation on clerk management and communication. So I will include a link to that webinar so you can learn how to set up tasks and reminders for yourself and your colleagues using RoomKey Message Center. But for today's purposes, just going to head back to our charges list here. So we've seen how we can post charges and also manage those charges directly in this invoice itself. You can also send this invoice directly to the organization using the Print Invoice button. This is going to allow you to see a preview of what the invoice looks like. I'm just going to use the default setting here, and I'm just going to zoom in so we can see this a little bit easier on screen. So this is what a single invoice would look like. It does have the contact information for the organization in the top left-hand side, and then off to the right-hand side, it does indicate the invoice number, the custom name that we gave it, the date that I am generating this invoice, so, and if there's any purchase order or PO number associated with it. The individual invoice is going to list out these individual charges as single line items. So we can see the charge for the ballroom rental, the AV equipment, and then the total balance that is due for the single invoice. So if you're sending that single invoice off to the organization, this is what they would see as far as that goes. Let me just go ahead and close this. Now you can, it is possible for an account to have multiple invoices. So instead of sending each individual invoice with those individual charges broken out to the organization, I'm just going to close this invoice here, and that will bring me back to the account. And you can actually send a statement, which is a collection of those individual invoices summarized for the benefit of the organization. So you can send a statement using the print statement button here from the account details. Again, in this case, if there was no email address on file, I can type out the email address, but of course you would want to make sure that that email address is complete on the account details page first. Then you can send as PDF. That'll send it as a PDF attachment to the email address you've entered here or the email address on file. Now I'm just going to click Show Report so we can see a preview of what a statement looks like. There we go. So a statement also has the contact information for the organization in the top left-hand corner. But off to the right-hand side, instead of showing invoice information, it's actually telling you the statement date and the balance due, the last time a payment was recorded, and if there's any existing credit on file for the organization. Then it's going to show you an aged balance report or breakdown of the outstanding balances, whether they are current balances, anything within 30 to 59 days, 60 to 89 days, or anything that has been owed 90 days or more. Then it's going to show you the summary of those outstanding invoices. So instead of showing you the individual charges, it's simply going to tell you which invoices are yet to be paid and what that invoice balance is. It's also going to tell you how long those invoices have been outstanding. So we've got a couple here that have been outstanding for quite some time. So those are a couple of the comparisons of how to create and manage those invoices or generate those and send those off to the organization itself. Just going to close out of here. Now, once payment has been received, so the organization is now sent a payment in order to pay off one or more invoices, we can use the City Ledger to record those payments as well. A couple different ways that you can do that. You can actually go directly to the Invoices tab, select the invoice, and click Pay Invoice. That is a lot of clicking to go through and pay an individual invoice. And for many cases, you may receive payment for multiple invoices. So RoomKey will often ask you when you click Pay Invoice, it's going to ask you if you'd like to apply the payment to multiple invoices. If you select no, it's just going to pull up payment for this one invoice. So you'll see that invoice number listed here, and it'll let you know what that payment amount is. So if I just want to pay off this single invoice, let's say I receive a check for $375, I can record the check number, and the amount on that check was $375, which is going to be applied directly to this single invoice when I click OK. So it does pay off that single invoice there. But if I wanted to pay multiple invoices, when I click Pay Invoice, I can select Yes. And that will now allow me to, once again, record the payment method. So I'll use check again, record the check number, and this time I can record the check amount. Now, it is possible to pay off a portion of invoices or all invoices, or you can overpay invoices. Just see here. I'm going to record this check for, let's say, $9,000. And select Next. So this is going to be an overpayment. I can now select which invoices I want to pay off. And we have a couple of familiar buttons here. In the top right-hand corner, I can select individual invoices one at a time. So I'd select the invoice and click Add Invoice, and then select another one and Add Invoice. You can also use the same button to remove the invoice if you don't want to pay those off in that manner there. Now, instead of selecting them individually, you can use the auto apply function. I do recommend using auto apply when you're paying off multiple invoices, because it will give you this option to apply the payments based off of a different application pattern. So you can apply payments based off of first in, first out, which is going to pay off the oldest invoices first. Last in, first out is going to pay the most recent invoices first, or purchase order number is going to allow you to apply the payments to certain purchase order number or PO number invoices. I prefer to use first in, first out. It's going to pay off those oldest invoices first, and select OK. Now you can see those invoices selected here, and before the payment is actually applied, I do recommend that you take a look in the lower left-hand corner. This is going to give you a summary of the payment application. So you can see I'm going to apply a payment of $9,000, but it is actually going to overpay. So I'm going to use a little over $8,500 to pay off the invoices, and I'm going to have a remaining credit just under $500. I can go ahead and select post payment, and RoomKey is going to give me the option to retain that remaining amount as a credit, a payment credit on file. I do recommend that you select yes. That way you can apply that credit amount to any future invoices for future payments, or for future invoices or future charges. If you select no, you will need to refund that amount back to the payment method on file. So you would need to then issue a check back for that outstanding or remaining amount. That can be a little bit tricky. So I do, like I said, recommend that you select yes to apply that as a credit on the account. Now I have paid off the account. And when I close this information, you'll notice that that remaining amount now appears as a payment credit on file. So we've seen how you can apply credits, record payments, going through and looking at the details of the account, but there's actually a bit of a quicker way to record payments for an account or for any outstanding invoices. I'm going to use Audi Canada as the example, but instead of opening up the account or using the View Details button, I'm going to go directly to the Post Payment button at the top of my screen. If I know that I just want to record a payment, I don't need to review the invoices first. I can simply select the Post Payment, record the payment information. Let's use a Visa credit card this time as an example. This is a corporate credit card, and it's going to be for an amount of $10,000. So I can add that information about the type of payment that I am recording, select Next, and it'll automatically pop up with this review of those open invoices for me. So I can, again, use the add invoice, or in this case, my favorite tool, that auto apply function. First in, first out. And it looks like I'm going to be able to pay off two invoices completely, and it's going to make a partial payment for a third invoice here. So I see that summary, nice and easy to review those details, and I can go ahead and click Post Payment. So it's applied that $10,000 payment, and it's brought down the invoice balance directly for me. Now, as you're recording payments inside the city ledger, you can review that payment history if there's ever a need to update any of that information. So that payment history is actually found here on the Payment History tab. For Audi Canada, I can see that payment that I just applied today, so showing me today's date, the amount that I applied, which was $10,000, and the amount was applied to 3 different invoices. I can see the details of this payment and how it was dispersed if I double click on this line item. That's going to open up my payment detail window, and I can see the 3 invoices that that payment was applied to, and I can also review the log information. So how much was applied and the name of the clerk that posted that payment as well. Now, I've recorded that as a $10,000 payment, but if it should have been $20,000, I recorded it incorrectly. So similar to the ability to reverse a charge that we saw on an invoice, you can reverse payment as well if you make a mistake. So here I'm going to click Reverse Batch Payment. And with all reverses in RoomKey, you do need to provide a reason. So again, this is posting error, wrong amount. And that will allow me to now reverse those record there. So I can see those reversals now showing up for each of those individual invoices, that amount that was applied has now been reversed from each of those invoices, and that's recorded here in the log. Now, I do need to go through and reapply that payment. So let me make sure I'm applying the correct amount. I'm going to show you that from the account listing, because the other thing that appears here, select Audi Canada, you'll see that that invoice balance has now gone back to 120,000. So that $10,000 that I paid off has been reversed, so that outstanding balance is still owed. I can repeat the payment process by clicking Post Payment, and once again, recording the payment information, the payment method here. And this time, I want to make sure I'm putting in the correct amount. So that was $20,000. I'll go ahead and click Next. Use the auto apply, first in, first out, and post that payment. Great. So that has now updated. I can see the updated invoice balance for the account. And once again, if I go to the payment history, because I reversed that other payment, it has now updated with the correct amount. So I've applied $20,000. And of course, I can double click and review that information here in the payment detail window. So you've seen quite a bit of information about how to create invoices, generate invoices and statements, post charges, reverse them, post payments, reverse those as well. A lot of this activity is tracked. So I wanted to show you a couple reports before we head back to our presentation here. Some of the key reports that you may use here in the City Ledger are found in the Reports menu in the top left corner. You have an aged balance report. This summary is going to summarize the aged balance report as of today's date. I'm going to include account credits for this so we can see what the full amount of information will appear as. So this will show any account credits represented by minus values here that are listed for the different accounts that we have open and active on our screen. And it does break it down with that age balance breakdown here for 30, 60, 90 days or more. You can go ahead and close this preview. Another report that is very helpful for managing in the City Ledger is found in the Reports menu, and it is the City Ledger transaction report, sorry. This is going to show me a log of all of the transactions I've produced so far today, including any transfers. So you can look at it for a single date range. It'll always default to the current date, or you could look at it for a wider date range. So if I wanted to look at it month to date, or maybe the past week, I can use that date range there. I'm just going to select OK and look at this for today's date. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. So the nice thing about this transaction report in the City Ledger is not only it's going to show me any charges and payments and transfers, it's also going to let me know if there's been any refunds. So when I reverse the charge and post it because I posted the wrong amount, that is recorded here alongside my clerk name. So I can be sure that I can review these transactions and make sure that everything I posted in today's date range was accurate. I can always review any refunds as well. So there's that refunded payment, again, due to a wrong amount. Towards the bottom of the screen here, it will also show you any of your transferred charges. So these are charges that are transferred from the front desk. Very similar to that report that we looked at earlier from the front desk side of things, it will record the guest name, res ID, and in this case, it'll tell you the clerk name. So the name of the front desk agent that transferred the charges from the front desk side of things at checkout. So once you have completed all of your tasks in the City Ledger and you've reviewed any of the reporting as needed, you can simply select Exit, and that brings you back to RoomKey. So RoomKey is always open and active in the backside there. So now that we've seen how we can use the City Ledger, you can talk about when you can start using the City Ledger. So every RoomKeyPMS database comes with the City Ledger already available in your database itself. It's found in that Operations drop-down menu. So everyone with a RoomKeyPMS database, you can get started now using those tools we looked at in today's presentation in the City Ledger. Summarize our presentation for today. The City Ledger is a very useful tool for managing those invoices without having to rely on any guest stays. Of course, we do have that enhancement that allows you to transfer charges from the front desk into the City Ledger in order to generate those invoicing documents as well. Now I'm just going to open up the floor and see if we have any questions. And it looks like we have no open questions. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. I know that this is our last presentation of 2022. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2023 for our next webinar presentation. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.